this week's Cruise Chat. I'm Kathleen Penner, owner of Plenty of Sunshine Travel, and today I'm joined by Kristen, and Kristen is from Hurtigruten Cruises, Expeditions actually, and we're going to be going over, this is the first time I've met with her, so we're going to do a great brand overview and look at some of the other exciting things that they offer. So over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathleen. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I'm so thrilled to be able to share all about Hurtigruten Expeditions with our potential clientele out there. So just to kind of give you a little background about where we came from, because we do realize, not everybody recognizes our name. But believe it or not, we've actually been around since 1893. We are over 128 years old, if you can believe it.
Incredible.
Yeah. So we first started as almost a mail carrier service along the Norwegian coast. We started first sailing between Trondheim and Hammerfest back in 1893 with our first captain, Richard With, and our first ship, the DS Vesteralen, that you can see there. And so we then started to expand this route to run almost the entire coast of Norway, from Bergen down in the south up to Kirkenes in the north. And the Norwegian coast is actually the second longest coastline in the world after Canada. So what was amazing about this route that we were doing is that we were able to sail the entire coast in just 7 days' time. And of course, back in 1893, I mean, that was an amazing feat to accomplish. So our name actually comes from that ability to sail so quickly. So the name Hurtig, it means fast or express. Ruten means route. So we are the fast route or the express route. And now I have to, give you the Norwegian pronunciation of our name, because they say it ever so eloquently. And, I don't personally think I do it justice, but they actually pronounce our name Hurtigruten. It just nicely flows and rolls off the tongue. So we have a fantastic history along the coast of Norway. But believe it or not, we actually are pioneers of expedition cruising. So just 3 years later, in 1896, we actually ran the world's first expedition cruise with passengers on board, sailing from Norway over to the high Arctic archipelago of Svalbard. And today we still sail there, and that's a great place if you're looking for the polar bears. But we've got a lot of great history in exploration travel, and of course, have since expanded around the world with our expedition cruising product. And yes, still offering, of course, guests the opportunity to visit the Norwegian coast with us. But I'll tell you a little bit more about those destinations further on in the presentation. So, expedition cruising is definitely a different style of cruising if you're not familiar or used to it. And we are definitely seeing, this shift in the cruiser that is maybe looking for something different, or even just someone who enjoys, African safaris, that type of thing. Expedition cruising is going to be right up your alley with something that you will enjoy. It really is that opportunity to go on a small ship and visit those rarely visited places, especially a place like Antarctica. I think they say only about 2% of the world's population has actually had the opportunity to visit the 7th continent. So there's really something, kind of exhilarating knowing that you're being in parts of the world that are rarely seen by a lot of tourists. So we have that opportunity to visit these remote regions, and some of them exist even in our own backyard. Especially for us, we have so many great exploration spots in the Arctic in our own country. So it, for us, is all about sort of 3 things. It's enjoying and visiting those untouched landscapes and just admiring their beauty and learning about how they're formed. We really want to get to know the small local communities wherever we visit. Now, not everywhere, of course, has a community, but when we are in those destinations, we want to make sure that they are a priority, that, we are supporting tourism through them and booking excursions and using their local guides to support the local community, but also to learn and celebrate their way of life as well. And of course, the other types of locals that we like to meet are the wildlife, you know, the different curiosity penguins maybe down in Antarctica, or visiting or viewing, I should say, from afar, the elusive polar bear up in the Arctic. But those are sort of the three main things that we like to work into a Hurtigruten expedition. And of course, expedition cruising, it does take more of an educational approach over entertainment. So the evening entertainment, for us, it's not, you know, Broadway or anything like that. We have our expedition team who are giving a lecture series throughout the experience and really, you know, helping our guests to fully understand and immerse themselves in the destination that we're visiting, both from an onshore experience, but also on ship through an educational perspective as well. And I think the most important thing, you know, when thinking about taking an expedition cruise is that idea of knowing that you have to travel with an open mind. The schedule remains very, very flexible because, of course, we always have Mother Nature to contend with. But at the same time, we want to be able to take advantage of the opportunities as they arise. And that could sometimes mean changing from plan A to plan B because something better has occurred or has, you know, come up that we have the opportunity and the ability in expedition cruising to shift or change our schedule to take advantage of that. So there's a lot of great, you know, sort of excitement, and, you know, no expedition is ever the same. You could go down to a place like Antarctica time and time again, and every experience will completely be different. And that's sort of the beauty of expedition cruising.
Yes, you could really take a back to back super easily and be able to see
Completely.
something so different each time. That's wonderful.
You're exactly right. And there's lots of opportunity with us to do those back to backs. We even do something called a pole to pole as well, where you can literally sail with us from the Arctic down to Antarctica and, you know, visit those places in between. So really getting the
Amazing.
ultimate back to back
Oh, that would
expedition
be great.
experience.
Goodness me, I'd love that. Yeah.
So we're very proud of our polar pioneering heritage. Again, as you heard me mention, we've been expedition cruising just 3 years after we started as a company in 1896. And we do have those small purpose-built ships for the regions that we sail in, some places where the larger ships aren't able to get to. When you do look at a destination like Antarctica, for example, or up in the Arctic, there are certain passenger capacities that we need to follow in order to be able to allow having our guests actually step foot on land. So you'll find differences in the experience when you're comparing small and large ships in these destinations, because there are certain rules and regulations and things that need to be followed in order to dictate the type of experience that our guests can have. We're very proud, you know, with what we have to offer in terms of the value adds that are included in the Hurtigruten expeditions experience. And I'll run through those with you. But really near and dear to us, and really it's in our DNA, is sustainability. And we are very proud of being industry leaders when it comes to sustainable travel and initiatives. Some of the things that we have accomplished over the last few years, we were the first major travel company and cruise line to ban single-use plastics across our entire fleet. We did that back in 2018. And we actually did it in just 4 months' time. It was just unbelievable how quickly, you know, the company was able to adapt and change the operation so that
really
we could
good,
get
because
rid
a
of
lot
those.
of the cruise lines are promising, you know, within X number of years, or
Yeah.
XYZ, then we'll have this done. So that's
Yes.
really great that you did it in such a short time span. You really are fast. There you go.
Exactly. Exactly. It goes along with the name, right? And so one of the other things that we've also done as a company as well that we're very proud of is we introduced the world's first hybrid electric powered ships. So we introduced the MS Roald Amundsen back in 2019, and then her sister ship, the MS Fridtjof Nansen, in 2020. And what we're very excited about is actually just last month in October of 2021, MS Fridtjof Nansen was rated out of 4 400 cruise ships that were analyzed, it was rated as the most sustainable cruise ship in the world.
Wow, what an honor. Oh my
It's
goodness.
a very big honor for
It is.
us because, as I said, sustainability is such an important part of our DNA in the operations of Hurtigruten expeditions. And we really want to ensure that, we are leaving the smallest footprint possible wherever we are.
Mhm.
And if wherever possible, we'd like to leave a destination better than we found it. You can see, I think this picture kind of captures that perfectly. So these are some of our guests that are up in the high Arctic, and we're doing a beach clean initiative here because, unfortunately, even in some of these uninhabited regions of the world, the currents in the ocean are washing all of these plastics and waste and fishing industry netting onto the shores of these regions. And of course, they can be detrimental to wildlife that live there. So anywhere that we're traveling that we can make an impact, and that could just be a matter of spending an hour or two with our guests while we're there, cleaning up the area that we're visiting, to leave it the way it should be. Those are the types of things that we like to get our guests involved in as well, while we're sailing. Our guests can also choose to participate in our Green Stay program. And what that means is they can choose to forego having their room, serviced for maybe a night or two or a week, depends on, how long people want to go. And, by them doing that, that of course helps us reduce, laundry detergent use and water usage and that type of thing. And so, for those that choose to forego having the room serviced, for each night that they do that, we make a donation on their behalf to the Hurtigruten Foundation. And our foundation works to support global and local initiatives for sustainability, and also, of course, support the local communities and the wildlife of the places that we visit as well. So there's a lot of good that can be done even just while enjoying a Hurtigruten expedition as well. We do have a goal as a company to offer the world's first 100% emission-free cruise ship. The technology isn't there yet, but that is something that we are working on as a company and investing in, because we see the importance of making sure that we aren't ruining the destinations of where we're visiting. So again, sustainability very much a part of who we are at Hurtigruten. We're very proud of it, and we're going to continue pushing to be industry leaders in this way of travel.
Fabulous.
So you heard me talk about sort of the value add, what really comes included with your Hurtigruten expedition. So I'll take you through what's involved there. We have a fantastic fleet of expedition ships that you can choose from. They range anywhere in size from 90 passengers up to 530, depending where in the world they're sailing. And of course, keeping in mind that we do cap off that capacity for the destinations that do require it, to ensure that our guests are getting the best experience possible where they're traveling. Now, the interiors of our ships, of course, we are a Norwegian company, so you will find a very Scandinavian, premium vibe on board. Those cozy, warm woolen blankets on your beds, nice warm wood tones. We like faux fireplaces around our ship as well, just to sort of give that sort of home away from home cozy experience, after being out doing a day of exploring. And a couple of our ships actually don't have any inside rooms, so they are outsides and above. We do have some of our smaller ships that do feature inside rooms, but we have anywhere from inside rooms up to expedition suites to suit our clients' tastes and budgets with wherever we're sailing. And some beautiful onboard amenities. It is still a small ship environment, but still a lot to feel like, places to cozy corners to, sneak away and grab a book, and read. Or of course, you can't be a Norwegian company without a sauna on board. That is very, very Scandinavian to do. What is really known for the Hurtigruten expeditions experience is our science center. This is unique to us. Again, just helping our guests have more of a hands-on experience on the education level. So we do have geological and biological microscopes on board. We have bone clones, all things to help our guests even further understand the regions that we're visiting.
Yeah, what a great thing to do if you're, on March break and you bring your child and they can learn so much. That's
Exactly.
great.
I
Yeah,
mean, they're going to get the most epic educational experience, I
absolutely.
think, sailing on board an expedition
Yep.
cruise. It's
And
it's
even
really,
during, yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted, but even during
that's
like the
okay.
shutdown when a lot of people were trying to homeschool and they've never done anything like that before, taking an educational cruise beats it hands down. You don't even have to work
Yes,
on teaching them because they'll do it for you. You guys will do it for
exactly.
them. So that's great. Can I just ask what's on the back of the chairs in the top picture? They look like
Back of the
little,
chairs.
is it light? Is it a
Oh, the
light up
things at the top. Yeah, they're little
there? Yeah.
reading lights so
Okay.
that you can just turn them on and just have kind of a nice little centralized
I couldn't
light,
see from that far away.
overlooking
That
your,
was interesting.
yeah.
Okay, I was curious. They look little airplanes from a
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah, it's kind of nice, especially when we're sailing at night as well,
Yeah,
just to have your own little, cozy reading
your
light over
bubble. Yeah.
your lounge chair.
Oh, that's nice.
Um, they've thought of every nice little detail, I think, when
Yeah,
designing our ships, which is great.
absolutely.
And I promise, don't worry, we'll never send you hungry on a Hurtigruten expedition.
Mhm.
Keeping in mind, we do like to say that expedition takes priority over meal times because we always want to take advantage of the experience while we have the opportunity and while Mother Nature is on our side.
Mhm.
So you might notice that day to day, the meal times may shift because we want to make sure that we're getting in, those landings or that scenic cruising in our zodiacs kind of takes priority, and we will fit our meals in and around those to make sure that, of course, nobody goes hungry, but is still getting the experience that we are all there for at the end of the
Yeah.
day. So all of your meals, of course, are included, as well as an early riser and an afternoon treat. We have coffee, tea, and water always available around the ship. And house wine, beer, pop, and mineral water is included in the restaurants at lunch and dinner. If you did want to make it, the all-inclusive drink experience on board, we do have an optional drink package that you can purchase.
Mhm.
And it's not the Norwegian way of life to tip, so we pass that concept onto our ship. So gratuities are not expected. It's completely at the discretion of our guest if they choose to.
Okay.
But unlike some of the larger ship experiences that you might be more familiar with, we don't have, any prepaid amounts that you have to have or any set day-to-day amount.
Mhm.
It is completely at the discretion of our guests if they choose to offer a gratuity or not. And then, of course, just given, the new landscape of how travel is adapting and changing with the ever-going situation,
Mhm.
we, of course, have adapted some of our health and safety protocols on board. Currently through the 2022 year, we will be requiring fully vaccinated guests,
Okay.
and our crew are vaccinated as well. Now, we still do currently have social distancing and face masks on board. Of course, other than if you're in, the dining rooms or
Mhm.
having a drink in the bar. And those things, we will continue to monitor those to see how long they stay in place. Do they get extended? Because of course we want to make sure we're not jumping the gun and removing things too early either. So the best thing is, of course, checking in with you, when you do have clients that are getting prepared to sail with us. We have the most updated health and safety policies available on our consumer website and on our agent portal as well. So there's lots of areas just to check in with everything that we're doing. It could be a presentation in and of itself with
Yes.
everything
Good. I
that
know.
is going on
And it
board.
changes so fast. So
It
I often tell
does.
my clients, you know what, at your time of booking, I may not give you all these details, but I'll let you know about a month before where they're at because
Yes,
it's
exactly.
useless to go through it all right now.
Yeah.
And then you're
And
like, okay, I have to remember all these protocols, for the guest and for the client, and then they all change.
exactly.
So
And
I do it about a month.
as we experience and are starting to, open up and sail into new countries, those
Mhm.
countries also
That's
have
right.
different requirements and
Yes,
things
they
like
do.
that. And I think if there's anything that supports, the extra value that, someone like yourself, Kathleen, can bring to the table. It's helping people navigate through, all of those obstacles that we are, breaking down those barriers and getting through and getting people,
Absolutely.
the comfort and the ability to travel again.
Mhm.
So really at the heart of the expedition experience is, of course, our expedition team. They're your hosts on board while we're doing landings or excursions, while we're out in our Zodiacs. We like to call them explorer boats,
Mhm.
but just so you know the term, they are
Yes.
the Zodiacs. They offer that in-depth lecture series throughout the voyage to help connect our guests to the destination that we're visiting. And they're educated professionals in things like geology, marine biology, ornithology. They all bring a different skill set and knowledge to the table, again, to tie in those destination themes and really make the ship almost an extension of where we're sailing. We don't want the ship to take away from where we're visiting, because we visit some incredible destinations around the world. So we just want our ship to be there as just sort of a nice blended in experience that ties in nicely with where it is that we're visiting.
Mhm.
And of course, they come highly trained in polar survival. So before we ever do start an Arctic or an Antarctic season, they have to go through not only Hurtigruten, trainings and
Mhm.
recertifications, they also have to go through some of the membership trainings and certifications that we're a part of as well, like IATO, which is the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators, and IECO, which is the Association of Arctic Expedition Cruise Operators. So there's a lot of extra knowledge and skill set that they need to have and need to train on before they're able to even, step foot on one of our ships up in the Arctic or down in Antarctica.
Mhm.
Now, for onboard engagement, we will have a lot of it led by the expedition team. So they will take us through the lecture series. They will also help our guests participate in things in our science center. So we do have a science boat that we take out, one of our Zodiacs, where we might collect water samples or phytoplankton samples, and we can actually bring them back on board and observe what's happening with them under our microscopes, even to the point of, we could be in some of the remote parts of the world, but those water samples even show signs of microplastics in them. And, just really
Mhm.
something that's, quite disheartening, but very interesting to be able to collect those samples and look at them on board our ships.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of, casual opportunity to engage and dine with our expedition team as well. I know from my experience, we had the opportunity to do sort of a family style dinner in one of our more casual restaurants that you could sign up for. It was part of
Mhm.
the included experience. And you could just sit with 2 or 3 of the expedition team members and just chat about, their lives, what it's like doing what they do, and
Mhm.
some of the favorite places they visited or their stories. Just a nice way to kind of add a little bit of a less formal approach to learning as part of the Hurtigruten expeditions experience. We do have a professional photographer on board each one of our expedition ships. So they are there to offer photo lectures on board,
Mhm.
because we do get a lot of professional and hobbyist photographers that like to enjoy our product because of some of the incredible destinations that we get to visit. And then our photographer also captures, the entire experience through photo and video as well, that are available for purchase on a USB at the end of the voyage. And we also produce what's called an expedition logbook. And this is emailed out to the client about a month after their Hurtigruten expeditions. And it will have a sample of some of the photographer's favorite photos from that expedition that our guests can download and have as a souvenir. And it will also actually outline, the different bird sightings that we
Mhm.
saw throughout. So it'll list all of the different birds that we saw and how many and when we did the
Mhm.
sightings. It'll list kind of a day-to-day recap of where it is we actually sailed versus the intended route, because of course, with expedition, things can
Things
change,
change.
routes
Yeah.
can change. So it's a nice little keepsake to have after your expedition as
Yeah.
well.
And I love how you're giving a USB stick with the pictures as opposed to printing them all up, having them all on the wall and throwing half of them away or more than
Yes,
half at the end of the
exactly.
voyage.
Again, trying to stay within sustainable,
Smart.
type of operations. And it gives our guests a much easier way just to transport and bring those home and print them themselves if they choose. We do have Wi-Fi included, just keeping in mind, of course, sometimes we are very remote,
Right.
that we don't always have connectivity, but it is an
Mhm.
option there for guests, to help stay connected at home
Yes.
through email and social media.
Mhm.
And another big part of the Hurtigruten expeditions onboard experience is our citizen science programs. So we are actually partnered with different associations around the world, essentially to help aid them in the collection of data and research. So how we can do something like that, I'll give you an example of our Happy Whale program. So Happy Whale is a database that literally just houses thousands upon thousands of whales and sightings within that database. So what can happen is if our guest takes a photo of a whale tail, which is their identifying marker, like we have with our fingertips,
Mhm.
we can upload that to the Happy Whale database, and it will actually be able to recognize from the photo if that whale exists in the database.
Oh,
So if it does, it will actually pull up the profile of the very whale that we have just witnessed.
goodness.
So it will
Wow.
tell us now, of course, the expedition team can easily tell us what type of whale it is, but the Happy
Mhm.
Whale database will list, of course, the species of whale that it is. It will tell us the gender of the whale. It will tell us approximately how old it is and what its migratory pattern is. And does it sail or does it sail? Does it swim, with a
Yeah.
large pod or a smaller family? So it's a really neat way to just know firsthand all of this information about a whale we literally just saw
Yes.
outside of
Yeah.
our own ship.
And I actually didn't know that each tail is independent to each whale.
It
So that's
is.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, you learned something
I
new.
did. I like learning. So there you go. That's really cool.
Yeah, and what's kind of even more cool, so let's say that whale doesn't exist in the Happy Whale database.
Mhm.
Our guest gets to be the one who adds it to the database, and they get to name the whale as well. So that
Wow.
whale, if it's
Exciting.
ever spotted again in future, will
Mhm.
come up in the database with the name that our guest gave the whale.
Wow.
So
Neat.
kind of cool. Like
Yeah.
I think I spent most of my time out there trying to capture a whale tail photo just so I could try and participate in something like that. It's just
Yeah.
such a neat thing.
Oh,
So
that's fabulous.
that's
Mhm.
just one of the many citizen science
Mhm.
programs that we get to work with on board.
And what a great
And
memory and bragging right to say that I got to name a whale and it's going to stay
exactly.
in the database forever with that name. So much
Yep.
better than going to the North Americanized ports where you get a little trinket, you stick it on your shelf, and you're like, why did I get that?
Yeah.
But to
Yeah.
have something that you named and it's, oh, that's so cool.
Very cool. Again, it's like I'm that's my next determination is to get
Hmm.
something, and it's not even something that you can actually do this outside of expedition as well. So maybe you're on the east or west coast and you spot a whale. You can actually help the Happy Whale database
Yeah.
even in your personal time as well. It's a
Mhm.
very, very cool way. I think
Yeah.
that we
You
can
feel
all
like having a
help
GoPro on your
contribute.
balcony the whole voyage so that you
Right?
can go back and look at the
Just
footage.
looking for whales.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it's always fun because, of course, when we do have whale sightings, the captain comes on over, the loudspeaker to say,
Hmm.
everybody head to the port side. We've got a pod of, orcas that are sailing or that are swimming next to the
Yeah.
ship.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's always great lookout by everybody to make sure that we're seeing everything
Hmm.
that's happening around the ship.
Fabulous. Yeah.
Now, of course, in order to enjoy an expedition, there is certain gear that you want to be wearing or bringing
Hmm.
with you, and we do provide some of that for you. Everybody does receive the Hurtigruten Expeditions jacket. It's a wind water resistant layer because really the best way to tackle dressing for expedition is layers,
Hmm.
especially if you are in the colder regions of the world. Sort of the secret is you wear the base merino layer, you put a sort of a fleece or something on top of that. You put maybe a down layer on top of that, and then you put our wind water resistant jacket on top of that.
Okay.
You know, that's kind of the secret. And it may surprise you that even in places like the polar regions, you know, sometimes the temperatures are warmer than we might assume. Unfortunately, climate change, we are seeing those temperatures rise. So you want to be able to, again, take off some of those layers as well, especially as you are getting more and less active throughout the day. So really layering is the key for any expedition packing when you're preparing. Now, in the destinations that require it, we do offer our guests on loan our Hurtigruten muck boots. Now, in certain destinations, these are a requirement. So we make sure that our guests are properly outfitted with them. So they are, you know, very thick, rubber treaded. They've got a neoprene lining to make sure they're waterproof. They're going to keep our guests' feet warm when we are traveling in certain regions. And again, it's one less thing you have to worry about packing, you know, when you're traveling with us, especially when we're in the colder climates and you already have all those extra, you know, clothing layers to pack. This is one less thing you have to worry about. We've got you covered on that.
Yeah, because they take up a lot of luggage space.
They really do.
Definitely.
They
Yes, it's good that
absolutely
you have
do.
those.
Yeah. And everybody will receive the reusable Hurtigruten water bottle. And we do have refill stations around the ships that you can fill those back up. So that's a souvenir to take home with you, as well as our jacket. That's something that you get to take home with you at the end of the expedition as well. And in our little onboard shop, we do actually sell patches of your ship that you sailed on. And there's little Velcro things on the side of your jacket. So it's kind of a nice little extra memory. What I've started doing is with each, you know, ship that I go on, I've started putting all the patches down the side of my arm on my Hurtigruten jacket, just as a nice kind of memory of, you know, the different ships that I've been on. And we do give our guests the opportunity to use our trekking poles as well. So again, one last thing you need to worry about packing, because sometimes we do have, you know, rocky or uneven or icy places that we are, you know, walking around a landing site. So you've got the use of our poles as well. And even if you're participating in any of our optional activities, you know, maybe it's kayaking, like we give you the full, you know, polar dry suit to go out kayaking in the cold destinations, or the wetsuit in the warmer destinations. So we always make sure you're geared up appropriately for the type of activity that you'll be participating in with us. Now, the expedition launch pad for our guests to enter and exit our Explorer boats is quite unique to Hurtigruten. The side of the hull of our ships actually folds out flat so that it's water level for our expedition or our Explorer boats to come right up to. And of course, there's always helping hands on the platform in the expedition boats to make sure that it's a smooth process for everybody getting safely in and out of the boats, because of course, safety is the #1 priority. And a common question that I tend to get is, you know, how difficult really is it getting in and out of those boats? Some people have reservations about that. We sort of equate it to getting in and out of a bathtub in your day-to-day life is sort of the best real life reference to it. But again, we always have those crew members that are there to make sure, you know, that it's a smooth and safe process for our guests. And it's not rushed, the disembarkation process. For us to go ashore. It's not like, you know, where we might be used to on a larger ship docking at a city, and then, you know, they open the floodgates and everybody comes down and is ready to disembark. On expedition, everything is done in small groups, and your schedule for disembarking will be in your daily program. And we like to space everybody out, you know, within 10 or 15 minutes of each other to give everybody enough time to safely and comfortably, you know, get into the Explorer boats to go ashore, so that we don't have any rush or any, you know, tons of people down at the platform trying to get on at the same time. It's all very timed, very seamless, and a very organized process for getting everybody on and off.
Yeah, I love that it's so well thought out. That way, you know, you don't have large groups standing there. Like, can you hurry up? And then you
Yes,
rush,
exactly.
right? So that's
Exactly.
perfect that you've done it that way.
And another part of the expedition experience is going out to do landings and to doing some ice or scenic cruising in our explorer boats. And, some people might not quite fully know what the term landing is. And so unlike, some of the places where you might actually dock in a city or at a port and, are disembarking onto a platform to go in and do some exploration, which we do have some itineraries where we do visit places like that. In a lot of the places we visit, we are essentially just using the land as our natural way to disembark and for our place of exploration. So just using it as it naturally sits for our guests to enjoy. And for ice and scenic cruising, that gives our guests the opportunity to get down into the explorer boats and do a little more sort of water level scenic cruising, in and around. Maybe if we're in, a place like Antarctica, it's getting closer to the ice. If we're up in Alaska, maybe it's cruising through some of the, icy bay areas or the fjord systems. So there's so many great elements for how you can enjoy these destinations when you're doing an expedition cruise. So some of the landing experiences that we might have, we may have a dry landing where it could be a small community that we're visiting that day.
Right.
And there is a little, docker platform that's there. So our guests' feet will stay, dry for that type of landing. We do also have the wet landings. You can see why those boots are very much in handy in certain situations, having them come in and out of the boats. And where needed, we do provide sort of a little set of metal stairs as well. But kind of the sit and twist mechanism is how we, get a lot of our guests in and out of the explorer boats when we're in sort of those wet, beachy type landings. We do also have the nature landings where, we might not have access to a beach or any type of little platform. So we have to use what Mother Nature has in store for us to disembark our guests. So it could be getting off on, kind of this little rocky outlet here, just using what's available to us so that our guests can go do some onshore
And I love the welcome party of the puffins.
Right, all the little puffins
awesome.
waiting. And of course, when we are in those colder climates, especially at the beginning of the Arctic and the Antarctic seasons, we do encounter polar landings where there could be lots of ice and snow, where we are disembarking our guests onto. And it could mean that our expedition team, as you can see here, might actually create a little set of stairs out of the snow and ice, before we bring our guests ashore, just to make a little area kind of easier for our guests to be getting in and out. So a lot of different, unique ways to be experiencing the landscapes that are around us. And of course, sometimes I think photos don't do anything justice, but this photo to me is just so incredible. Seeing really how small, we are in the grand scheme of things up against all of this ice. It's just such an amazing opportunity. It's not always all about land for expedition cruising. It is also a main component for getting out in the boats and doing some water level cruising as well, and getting a little bit closer to the ice. Now, of course, always maintaining a safe distance and being aware of how ice can shift and roll, and pieces can drop off of it. So there is still a huge safety component to it that our expedition team is well trained on. But it just really is an extra way to enhance the overall experience for our guests.
Absolutely.
And of course, there's not always ice everywhere that we sail. So just the opportunity to get down into the explorer boats and just explore, some of the amazing, cliff faces that might be near us, or the mountain regions that we're sailing in. This particular photo is actually Torngat Mountain National Park up in northern Labrador. And this park is actually only sees about less than 600 people in a year from a tourist perspective. So again, it's kind of that neat feeling of knowing you're one of the very few that is having the opportunity to visit some of these regions. And of course, another main component of the Hurtigruten expeditions experience is doing some of our hikes. Now, we do have different levels of hikes. We rate things from a level 1 up to a level 4. And you will always know ahead of time before going out what level the activities and the experiences will be, so that you can judge, of course, which one is the most appropriate for yourself.
Mhm.
And these are typically led by our expedition team, and they will, bring our guests maybe on a short hike just to observe perhaps some wildlife that we know is maybe nesting in an area just around, one of the bends, or it could be a longer hike with just a set amount of people
Mhm.
that we might be going up and trekking, one of the mountain faces that is nearby.
Mhm.
So there's lots of different ways and opportunities to go out and enjoy, some walks and some hikes with us. And of course, we love participating in our community visits. And we have a saying at Hurtigruten that we arrive as guests, but we leave as friends. And that is the most important thing to us. We never want, just for the sake of tourism, to not have it be mutually beneficial for us to be there. And it
Mhm.
could even mean that, before we disembark in some of these smaller communities, actually speaking with the elders to say, I know we're supposed to have our guests here today, but is it still okay that we disembark our guests, to come and meet and work with the local community?
Mhm.
Because you just never know what that community might be going through at
Right.
that time.
Mhm.
So we want to make sure that it is respectful, and to help foster, future visits and relationships in the future. So
Mhm.
we have the opportunity, to really learn and celebrate their way of life, and have the opportunity to be invited into their homes and see how it is that they live. What are some of the
Yep.
foods that they eat?
Mhm.
For a lot of them, hunting is still very much a part of their way of life and survival, and just learning all about that. So we really cherish our community visits, and it's part of the Hurtigruten Foundation
Mhm.
initiatives that we like to use, that funding that's raised to support these local communities as well. Um, and again, I think it just gives our guests so much more of a broader understanding of, outside of our own homes and our own communities, and learning all about the different ways of life around the world.
Mhm.
So then, last but not least, as part of the expedition experience with us, is those wildlife viewing opportunities.
Yes.
And in a lot of our destinations, there are set rules that need to be
Mhm.
followed in terms of the distance that we need to maintain, because at the end of the day, we're guests in their home, and not the other
Mhm.
way around. So we don't want to change any of their natural behaviors, or affect any of maybe there's a nesting period going on, and
Mhm.
we don't want to get involved in any of that. So for a place like Antarctica, for example, the distance is 5 meters or 15 feet away. You can see these guests, they've just nailed it perfectly, maintaining
Yeah.
the distance. But sometimes, the wildlife doesn't know the rules, and
Mhm.
they may cross over those barriers and come a little bit closer, to our guests.
Mhm.
When I was traveling down in Antarctica, actually, there was a Gentoo penguin that came up to my colleague that I was traveling with, and it was doing everything in its power to try and get his life jacket strap in his beak, because it
Oh
was kind of
no.
blowing in the wind.
Yes.
So it was like this penguin's mission that he was going to get this life jacket strap.
Mhm.
So, for us who have the rules to follow, you just have to let the penguin take control of the situation.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he got that life jacket strap in his beak, and he kind of held on to it and, wiggled it around for about 30 seconds.
Mhm.
And then he got bored and he waddled off and carried on with his
Oh,
day.
wow.
And
What a
so my
great memory.
colleague
Wow.
just, right,
Mhm.
my colleague just sort of let it happen. You just let the penguin do its thing. Obviously, we don't want to scare them. You
Mhm.
never reach down and touch them.
Mhm.
But there can be some pretty incredible experiences like that. We've also had guests where, they've been in our explorer boats and had, or our kayaks. We've had a kayak group, a few of them go through it, where a whale might actually come up and swim underneath and around, with the little boats that we're in. So there
Wow.
can be some very thrilling, things
Yeah.
that can happen with wildlife,
Mhm.
and they're always unexpected. And I think, again, tying back to that beauty of expedition cruising, is you can't plan for any of this.
Mhm.
It just kind of all naturally happens on its own, which
Yeah.
is fantastic, and why no two experiences will ever be the same.
Mhm.
So in some of the destinations, we do have optional excursions or activities
Okay.
that you can participate in that would come at an extra charge.
Mhm.
So this would be in some of the places where we might actually have access to local, tour companies and things like that, who can help our guests explore further inland.
Mhm.
So Norway is a great example of that, because yes, we do have a lot of places where it might just be to enjoy the landscapes, but we do have a lot of cities and towns that we can enjoy in Norway
Mhm.
as well. So there's always going to be an included activity or excursion per day. But if you do choose in destinations that it's available, the optional activities, that's something that comes at an extra cost and can help, with further exploration inland, on top of the included excursions that we offer.
Mhm.
So just to give you an idea of where it is in the world that we sail. So of course, we've talked about Norway. I mean, that is our heritage. And, if you're going to travel to Norway, why not go with the Norwegians?
Yes.
And of course, we visit those polar regions down in
Mhm.
Antarctica, and then up in the Arctic, we are visiting Russia and Greenland, and Svalbard, which is the high Arctic, kind of chance to potentially see some of the polar bears. And believe it or not, Iceland is even considered part of the Arctic,
Okay.
because there is a separate island that belongs to Iceland just north of the mainland called Grimsey.
Mhm.
And the Arctic Circle actually crosses right through that island. So it makes Iceland a
Mhm.
part of the Arctic.
Okay.
And now, of course, we fill in the gaps in between the polar regions as well.
Mhm.
So we do sail to places like Alaska. So for us, think 14 up to 18-day immersive small ship experiences where, really the wild frontier is the focus. We really
Yes.
want to get our guests familiar with, the wildlife, the beautiful landscapes, the
Mhm.
local communities and culture, and the Inuit community that's there as well. And we even have the opportunity to go as far north as Nome, Alaska as well. Some very unique itineraries that you can experience in what is typically a very common cruise destination,
Mhm.
but can be experienced in a very different way.
Mhm.
We also visit places like the British Isles, and of course, East and West Coast North America, Central and South America, because we need to connect the two polar regions, because we do have ships that do both the South and, the Northern polar areas,
Mhm.
and cover the locations in between. And then exciting and new for us in 2022 will be the Galapagos Islands. We
Oh.
start sailing there in January, so we're very excited about that. And we also just introduced West Africa.
Hmm.
So we will start sailing there in November of 2022. And it actually gives you up to 5 different countries that you can experience with us in West Africa,
Hmm.
including the very biodiverse area of the Basagos Islands.
Mhm.
So a lot of very unique and different places that you can experience with
Absolutely.
Hurtigruten expeditions.
Mhm.
We have a very loyal, guest on board, and we always want to make sure we're offering something new for them, to be able to continue
Yeah.
exploring with us around the world. So there's a lot of exciting opportunity and future growth that we're working on to explore even further around the
Mhm.
world.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to show just sort of a quick 2-minute video. I personally love this. It sort of gives a nice overview of us, but also what type of traveler would enjoy cruising with
Yes.
Hurtigruten expeditions.
Sure.
So I hope that you enjoy the video.
When you travel with us, you are not the typical tourist. You are a modern-day explorer. You want to see pristine beauty off the beaten track and have authentic experiences of that certain place. Something different and spectacular. You like adventures. The fact that we do our cruises in true expedition style is part of the experience. Sometimes the elements challenge the set itinerary, but not knowing the exact sailing route is part of the adventure. You know that no one controls Mother Nature, and seizing opportunities is the best way to explore. You are a knowledge seeker. The fact that we have an expedition team with hand-picked experts for your expedition makes you excited. You love that there's a science center on board, lectures, and citizen science programs. You will enjoy the state-of-the-art expedition ship with superior cabins, fantastic foods, and lots of wellness possibilities. But for you, the most important is to get the full perspective of the destination. You want to go ashore and to experience wildlife, culture, nature, and history up close, and in a truly authentic way. You want to join in on our passion and knowledge. You want more information, to be challenged, get deeper insights, and learn mind-blowing things, and at the same time be stunned by all the amazing and fragile beauty this world holds. And you want to do so in the most sustainable way possible. And that's why you travel with us.
So that is sort of us in a nutshell, Hurtigruten expeditions.
I love seeing that kayak get so close to the glacier. Like that's outstanding, amazing.
I think
Actually,
experiences
physically be
like
able to do
that,
that
like
close.
life-changing.
Yes.
I've used that word, I know, a few times on my own trips with Hurtigruten, and it's just such a thrilling way to experience our world. And every time I see that video, or any video really, it just really makes me want to get back out there and be back exploring our world again.
I'm so glad that cruises are starting to come back to service slowly and safely, because I've missed it immensely, and I know my clients have too, and so have you. So everybody wants to get back out there. Goodness. Yes,
that's exactly
it.
Thank you so much
for putting all that together. I know how much work it is, and I greatly appreciate it. It was a fabulous, great overview of Hurtigruten. I hope I said it right. I probably did. It was just amazing just to see it all. So thank you so much for putting that together.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's such a pleasure to be here and to have the opportunity to speak with you and hopefully inspire some others, who may want to go out exploring sometime in the near future.
Maybe next time we meet, we could do that pole to pole. Wouldn't that be fabulous to show everybody that?
That would be awesome. Yes.
So
fantastic.
So we're going to say goodbye now, and thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a great week. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this week's Cruise Chat with Hurtigruten. It was really neat to see the itineraries that they have, but not only that, how they're so sustainable and how they really strive to make the shoreline, make the destinations that they leave better than when they came. So I love how they're doing that. It's just amazing and fabulous. And I hope you enjoyed watching it as well. Next week, I'm going to be meeting with Maxine from Celebrity Cruises, and she's going to be aboard, I believe it's a Summit, but I forget which cruise ship, but she is definitely going to be on a cruise ship and speaking to us. So that's really, really cool. We did that 2 weeks ago with Virgin Voyages, where she was on a cruise and she was talking to us, and it makes me want to cruise again. And I miss that I can't, but I'll get there at some point again. I'm sure we all will. In fact, my next cruise is in 100 and some odd days. It's in March, so it'll be coming up before you know it. And if you're listening to this on our Cruise and the Waves podcast, thank you for tuning in. If you want to see any of the amazing images that Kristen shared today, head on over to our YouTube channel, Plenty of Sunshine Travel on YouTube. And the other way, if you'd like to be listening to things on the go, by all means, come and join our podcast. It's Cruise and the Waves podcast. Thank you so much for watching this week, and I'll see everybody next week. Have a great week. Bye.